We're back for season 2.
Yes, it's bigger. It's badder. It's
Oh, just get on with it.
bad scripts.
Hello and welcome back to Bad Scripts presents The Last Resort. And what is the last review? Mike, it's wonderful to see you, and I can see you. Although we're hundreds of miles apart, not thousands of miles apart, it's strange to do this via video again, because we've only done a couple of these, sort of where you can see us and know what crazy facial expressions we're putting. Fortunately, tonight is different. We won't be doing any accents, dodgy accents, or strange and unusual things. But we want to have a little review of everything that's happened in season 2. Now it's come to an end. Mike, how are you feeling about season 2 ending?
Amazing. No more writing.
Oh, you're happy?
No. Do you know? No, I'm not. And I think it's a bittersweet moment, actually, as we said in the last episode. It's amazing to not have the pressure of writing and conceptualizing the story, then trying to put it all together, and then hoping it makes sense and it appeases everyone who's listening to it and it's gone in the right direction. But also, yeah, there's a little bit of loss there and a bit of mourning that we're, that I'm feeling, certainly, because it feels weird not having that anymore and not having that focus to go, we got to do another episode, Steve, or we got to move the story along. And are we happy with the way this is progressing? Because we planned it out so long ago and we stuck true to that. So I'd say bittersweet.
Bittersweet. Well, no review would be complete if we didn't have some independent advice on what we've written and what's been witnessed. And no better people to help us than listeners and former entertainers. So, Mike, would you do the honours of introducing our guests for this week's show?
That is such an honor because massive
Can
fans
you hear
of
me?
you guys. And thank you so much for giving us a little bit more of your time. And you've been such supporters of our project and our story that it is an honor to have you guys here. We have Ali, who's been on the show more than anybody else, actually, who's given us such wonderful feedback. And actually, Ali, I've got to say, changed the trajectory of our second season based on your feedback and your thoughts and your views from previous episodes and what you thought. Invaluable feedback, actually, to help broaden mine and Steve's horizon and think about different things in a slightly different way. So our wonderful friend, business owner extraordinaire, it is Ali.
Hello, thanks for having me back. That was such a lovely and concise introduction there. Brilliant, well done. And it only took one go, didn't it, Mike? No, it's great to be back. And I think you missed out that I'm actually, yes, I'm a listener and I'm a friend, but I'm also a huge, huge fan of the podcast. And I feel slightly bereft by the loss of it. So, but we'll come to that a bit more later. So thank you for having me back. And I am really happy to be here.
You're more than welcome. And our second guest is by no stretch of the imagination incredibly successful in his world. We all started out relatively similar together in the entertainment industry, and we all fell down at some point and went, you know what, we're getting normal jobs. But this gentleman, he carried on going, and he's thriving, and he's succeeding, and he's becoming incredibly successful, and we're so proud. And that is Paul. Hi, Paul.
You do the best introductions, guys. I have to say, I'm going to start recording these and playing them out in my shows, just like before I go on air. I'm like, just play that out, just play a bit of mic there. That'll be good. No, it's great to be back, guys. Really great to be back. And I, like Ali, we're missing. It's like missing. I don't know. It was like the end of El Dorado or the end of Dallas. It was finished. And I want to know. We're here to quiz you. We're here to find out what's going on, and maybe you won't tell us, or maybe that'll be left up to what people out there are thinking. But there's lots of unanswered questions, and we're really hoping it's not the end. But it's great to talk about this anyway.
And we can gang up on them, Paul. Usually we're on our own, aren't we? But you and I can gang up on them.
Plan.
this was a risk. This was the risk that Steve and I was going into here. We're going, let's get Paul and Ali on to talk about the show. And being compared to El Dorado, that short-lived Channel 5 launch show, I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, to be honest with
We'll
you.
leave that off the poster, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was only surpassed by was it called Brothers and Sisters? That was another Channel 5 soap that
Family Affairs.
at the same time. Family Affairs,
Yes.
of course, it was Family Affairs.
So I had a
They
brief
the
stint in,
twins.
but we won't go there. We won't go
Oh
there.
yeah, it's all right. We've all got shameful soap histories to. I mean, Mike, I think you were nearly killed by Richard Hillman, weren't you? On Coronation Street at one
I
point.
certainly was. I dived out the way at the right time for that speeding vehicle.
I
Before he went
did
into
not
the,
know that.
I didn't know that.
Got paid a handsome
apparently-
stuntman's fee for that one.
Your episodes are currently on here in the UK. Your episodes are currently on. I'm going to be watching to see.
Oh, you never know. Yeah, keep an eye out for him. You were standing with a young lady, I believe, which is nothing new.
Is that before they go in the canal? Is that before they went?
Yeah,
the
right before it. Yeah.
Wow.
No
Awesome.
way. You must send me a link.
Yeah, well, if we could find it.
Or a sausage instead. Oh, that's a terrible joke, isn't it? So
Maybe
link
cut that in
sausage.
the edit. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, cut that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Moving on.
Never mind. The dad jokes go. Yeah, exactly. Cool. And we actually did some Hollyoaks as well. That was quite funny. Doing that up at Phil Redmond Studios. That was interesting. So got to meet some of the wonderful cast. I think we've talked about that before on the show.
Yes.
But we're here
Yeah.
to talk about our show and the show that's now finished, now complete. The story is over. Hate to break it to everyone, but there will be no more. But we wanted to talk about season 2. We can reflect on season 1 as well and the differences.
But I wanted to ask
Yes.
before you do
Go
that.
for it.
Sorry to jump in. Did you have the end planned, like from the beginning? Like, was that the way you wanted it to end? Because I was, I'm not a writer myself, and I'm always fascinated how you did bring it all together at the end in that one final episode.
Do you want me to answer that, Mike?
Yeah, you go for it, Steve.
So, not from the beginning of season 1, because obviously that was 18 years ago, but from the beginning of season 2, we road mapped every key event we wanted to happen right through. That's what we did first. And then we joined the dots and we made some connections and we made sure things, before we wrote any of the dialogue, that these trajectories, that these lives would interact and all these circumstances. It was really complicated. It looked like something from a crime drama where they got the board and all the lines.
Oh, and all the
with the
It's a string.
strings
and that,
between
yeah,
them.
nice.
That's what in our brains. That's what we were having to do. So it made the writing that much. We were trying to be clever, and it made the writing that much more difficult because we had to then interconnect all these stories. We went for a massive cast in the second season with loads of new characters, and we probably bit off more than we could chew, and it was really difficult. But yeah. To answer your question, Paul, we knew what we were going to do.
So we always knew from the very beginning that Adam and Dan would leave. So that was always preordained from the get go. We always knew that Kelly was going to have a downfall because we needed to establish a villain of sorts. In a weird way, a fun person, and we just miss Kelly as a character from the first series because she's so interesting, she's so edgy, she's so bitey, she doesn't apologize for everything, she's fun to play and fun to play around with within the story itself. And then when we established the character of Bernie, Steve and I decided to change up the acts, so to speak. So we had him as our central point. The midpoint of the story was all about Bernie, because we wanted to expand the story and make it much bigger. And then in the last act, which was the last kind of 6 episodes, we wanted to focus solely on the characters themselves and go right down. So everything that we did was building up Wayne, building up Kelly, building up Adam, Dan. We wanted Adam to go on an arc, and we really wanted the audience to hate him because we decided that at the very beginning. Adam is just from the Christmas episodes when Sam and him have relations and stuff, and then he gets paranoid, throws his phone into the sea. That was the start of the next story. So we built the story up, and we knew exactly where we wanted to go with that. But we had to have a redeeming element to Adam. So Sam was always coming back because it's the only way that could redeem him without it being too trite. So, as Steve said, we had this roadmap that we had to just fill in the blanks and try and get the characters across from there. But we had to make some of them really unlikable in order to drive the story across.
And isn't Adam the one that you said is a bit autobiographical, that you'd sort of based on yourself? Is there a bit of self-loathing going on there, Mike?
No, definitely. In season 1, no, actually, because when we wrote season 1, I did write Adam as someone I would want to portray and play. But then when we recorded season 1, I said to Steve, I really don't. This character's so one-dimensional, and there's not really anything going there. But there's something about him that we could encapsulate on. And there was a few elements in season 1 where there was moments of anger and moments of dysfunction. And we said, well, why don't we just pull on that a little bit more and see what happens? And that kind of opened up the story. And that's where the Halloween special came from and the Christmas special. And then when we realized, oh, do you know, we could really play around with Sam and Adam's relationship, that it's not all fairy tale. And the ex comes back in because he was mentioned briefly in season 1 as almost like a kind of side, they just had a side conversation. So let's pull on that one and see. And it just drove the next season.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and like we discussed previously, I think, like you said, Mike, you wanted to play that character. Didn't mean it necessarily reflected you. I think it reflected the choices you wanted to make initially. We tried to make him quite chivalrous and selfless, but then as it went on, he got darker elements. There was a side to him that we didn't really like, and then that was accentuated, like I say, through that misunderstanding of what Robin had said to him about go out there, live a bit, forget about her, and he took it to the next extreme. That made it a much more interesting character to be, much more multi-dimensional, and you felt like you could get your teeth into him, and he was flawed. And it was amazing the messages we got from people, the vitriol towards Adam. Oh, Adam is just a dickhead, and blah, 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 and you literally.
And we were like, yeah, that's what we wanted.
His behaviour, yeah, exactly. Because, and me and Mike have this conversation regularly. People message us or call us and go, "So and so's done this. I can't believe it," and we're going, "No, nobody's done anything. They're just words we wrote on a piece of paper. It's not a real person." But people get so invested in it.
No, but we've discussed
it kind of warms your heart,
There's an alternate reality that you've created by creating these characters that now exists, even if it's only in people's mind. It exists there. They're as real to me as if you were telling me about someone you worked with. I've never met them. I don't know their circumstances, but they are real to me.
And it has to be a good story as well, because obviously you're two guys doing an array of voices. Round of applause to the voices. And that's the thing. But you have to believe in those voices. You have to go on that journey. If it's like, oh, hello, doing like silly voices, then you don't invest in the character. But you really did, and the stories kind of pulled you along with the adventure as well. Especially talking about Adam, he was, I liked Adam, I did, but then he was horrible though. But then. We all know blokes like Adam, so he isn't anything new. But you had to see it from the side that he was, he wasn't being honourable, was he? But we all know blokes like Adam, and I may have friends like Adam as well. That they do what they do, and that's their world. But it isn't the way you would live your life by your values. But so, do you know what I mean? It wasn't a case that we hated Adam. For me, it was like. I recognise this character, and it was good to see the other side of him. We didn't just make him this, showman the whole time.
We wanted Adam to be a victim, so we wanted him to accept that victim status, and he has broken up with someone who he fell really hard for and couldn't get over it, and that gave him and his morals and ethics and values an excuse to do what he did. And that's why he did what he did. He just stopped caring about what anyone else thought because he felt that he'd been burned, which was the irony being it was a complete it was all in his own head. He's the one that he basically destroyed his own relationship with what he did, and we always knew that that Dan was going to reveal those truths to him because Dan's the only one he really trusts. So Robin's the vehicle to say to shine the light in front of him and go, look, this is how you've been, and this is why no one really likes you anymore. And then when he turns to Dan in that street scene that we wrote, and Dan's like, well, actually, mate. What Dan says to him is a series of truths, and that just like that for Adam is the turning point. It's and it also meant because we had to have a strong enough reason for these chaps to leave. We couldn't just say they're going to go off now because they've found something better. Adam can't stay there. He just can't because his reputation is too soiled. He's the perception that people have about him, what he did with Tatiana. He broke Judy's trust when he did all of that. He didn't care. He then gets the life scared out of him. All that type of stuff. There was everything that Steve and I talked about at the very beginning, especially when we're bringing them back to say, well, why are they really there? Because we had to justify the amount of characters we had. And that's where that kind of act came from, was we have to give him a redemptive arc, but we have to not destroy him enough that the audience wouldn't want to follow him into something else. And the whole Dan situation, we didn't want a breakup. We didn't want to write that. We left it like that.
I'm really glad that you did that, because when I'm watching any sitcoms or anything like that, it's when there's a good couple, you think, oh, how long is it going to be until they break up? It's like that's the only thing that can happen to create a bit of tension in the storyline, that a couple breaks up. So seeing a different approach, it's not lazy, is it? It's you've actually thought about it. So well done.
We thank you. We didn't.
Great job.
And we did labour over this a lot. Will we break them up on screen? What we decided was, it's a little bit ambiguous at the ending. We know what's happened. Me and Mike know what's happened with them, because there is the possibility of a spin-off exclusive.
I knew it, Ali. I knew it. I knew we were brought on here for the big announcement. I knew it.
That would involve the two of them going off and working abroad. And, then you can introduce new characters. You can have old characters popping over and seeing them, or, appearing, which is something that happened to me when I worked abroad. I saw people I'd worked with at Bridal that turned up, and I realised I just said the word, but that's fine.
Hey, what about
all these years? 2 years, and I never said it, and then I've just done it.
Hilarious.
Have we got a beat machine we can put on?
Yeah.
You could always do Camp Coats 2022 or something, the reunion.
Yeah. I think we did that in February, didn't we?
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
No, but the point about Dan and Donna was, we wanted them not to be a traditional breakup. We didn't want it to be they fell out and they didn't want to be together. We wanted to be a bit more, we wanted to show the reality of a situation, that sometimes you get into a relationship with somebody in an environment like that, and it's, for the long term, it's not necessarily sustainable. You've got different dreams and different things, and you're really young. And actually, if you stay together, you can end up squashing those dreams, both, and you create resentment. And I think that was the toss-up we had, was do we make them stay together? Do we make Dan not go off and do these things? Because he loves Donna, don't get me wrong. He loves her with all his heart, but he has other things he wants to do too. Donna's in that place.
It's such a shame, because, sort of talking about the reality of working in that kind of place, it has an expiration date. There's only very few people that do have the opportunities to stay. I mean, I say opportunities. Is it an opportunity to stay there? I don't know. But, going into management or being a choreographer or whatever. But for most people, it's 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years. And if you're making relationships in that, there comes a point where you say, well, what's next? I mean, I know myself, I was in a relationship there. We went off and did separate things and kept coming back together and going apart and coming back together. And there was a point where we had to go, we need to find something we can do together, or we need to not do this anymore. And that, it always has a bit of an expiration date, doesn't it? So
it's also a bit of a bubble. I mean, we've talked about the bubble before. It's like, you're there and you're in this little safety bubble, and all your friends are there, and it's that whole experience, and what an experience. But then when you leave, you're not prepared for that. Nobody ever prepares you for like coming back. And I mean, I think I mentioned it last time. You're in shopping centres talking to children. You think, I really shouldn't be doing this. I don't, you know,
Hi, kids.
like, hi everybody. You know? But so you're just not prepared for any of that, especially. And you know, you're talking about relationships, but also in careers. You know, it was a real kind of wow. You know, you're not. People aren't stopping you for your autograph in real life, unfortunately. But when you were there, you know, you were forever signing your photos, or you know, kids were giving you letters and stuff like that, and that was incredible, and you know, something I'll never ever forget, and probably never have again. But like I say, nobody prepares you for that when you leave. Nobody.
I think you maybe take it for granted a little bit while we're there as well. You know,
Yeah,
like
totally.
you think that there's always something better around the corner, but I know going on and doing lots of ENTS jobs afterwards that nothing compared.
Not that sustained, because with most ENTS jobs, you're a brief period doing this or a brief period doing that. There's a few exceptions, but that was sustained. You know, you were there for a good portion of time, and there was no let up. 6 days, 7 days a week, depending on what you were doing. So it was just all the time, wasn't it? And that energy was there. You didn't have the highs and lows of, oh, did I get this job or didn't I? And have I got to audition again for the? It really, like you say, there was that sustained period where you
let's address something else as well, and this was largely inspired by you, Ali, actually, with your diary and your views and thoughts. And so we created characters specifically to showcase the competition and how competitive it was. So yes, getting a job is one thing, and all of us have experienced this. Getting a job is one thing, but then shining above everybody else to vie for a better position, a better part, to get into cast, to do whatever it is you want to do becomes that stressful, competitive edge where everyone around you is also your competition as well. And yeah, we were all supportive and stuff, and we're all at different stages.
Were we all supportive?
I was just going to say, were we? Yeah.
Some of us. But you know, we didn't have the time to go into it deep enough, but we tried to portray it through some of those characters. So even the character called Ali, who subsequently becomes head girl, you know, with the whole Bernie situation, that the whole motivation behind that was writing out that competition with what happens with Robin, and Bernie just doesn't take him seriously, and you know, and that bringing self-doubt into it. That was quite a common daily occurrence. And when you said, actually, when we're there, you don't realize what you've got, we also forget how difficult and competitive it was, because it's like every day is an audition. Every day is about showcasing yourself in the best possible way.
It's like a balance between being really full of yourself and thinking you're brilliant, and having complete imposter syndrome and thinking you're not good enough. And, you know, it was like just constantly going from one to the other. And yeah, it was, you got that across as well.
Oh, thank you. Now, I've got a question for you guys then. So let's go. I'm going to ask you two questions each, and the same question. So one of you will have time to think about it a little bit more than the other. But so I want to know, one, your favourite character from season 2, and 2, your favourite moment from season 2. So we'll start off. Paul knows, so I'm going to get Paul
I'm
first,
there.
and
I despised Kelly. But because it was tuning in to find out when Kelly's going to get a comeuppance, and is she going to get a comeuppance? And you wrote the best comeuppance, I have to say, of like having her screaming, you know, as she's pulled from it's soap opera brilliance. I love that. It was like she could have just been found. You know, these days when you watch soap operas, they tend to not give that big impact of a baddie, because it's an ongoing thing. Do you know what I mean? They want to be able to maybe return to that character or bring that character back in or whatever. But what you did was kind of like made sure that everybody knew what was going on, and it was, and for listeners, I don't know if Ali felt the same. I was just like, yes, brilliant.
Yeah.
So good that was vile. What she was doing was so. And when they couldn't get into the computer, I was like, "Oh my god, they've got to get into this computer." How can they? And then it was like, "Oh, we've just happened to have found the code. Brilliant! Like, love that." And
Do you know what the hardest part of all that is? The hardest part of all that is remembering how computers worked at the turn of the millennium.
Oh yeah,
And you didn't call them a PC. You didn't call it this and that. It was a computer because we didn't use the term PC. It wasn't we weren't as au fait with them, so people wouldn't naturally have gone to that. So we had to, so many times we had to stop ourselves and go back and go, actually, we need to remember how naive we were to technology at that level. There wasn't many computers in the office. There was a couple, probably not on every desk, and it wasn't laptops. It was the big old cream big screens,
massive things. Yeah.
So that side of it was like we had to make sure we wrote it so that it had that realistic element of that turn of the millennium, and not just a case of, well, it's on her phone or on a fingerprint thing.
So here's some insight into all of that. Steve and I knew that she had to have a downfall, but we didn't quite know what it would be.
Yeah.
And it was only when we started writing it, and we were there writing away, and Mark, Mark's there and stuff, and they're talking away, and then we just suddenly said, what if she burns the papers and sets the desk on fire and causes the fire sprinklers to go off, which causes everyone to get out of the building, and then the police arrive because she tries to attack them, and the security arrive, then the police arrive, and she gets taken out that way. And at the moment we said it, it was like that. It was that quick. We went, that's it. That's how we're going to do it.
Everybody's outside and everybody's watching.
Yeah,
everyone's there.
But there was a character, and forget names. It's just gone for a second, but he fell on his sword. Basically, he had to leave in order for her to get a comeuppance. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it would have all come out.
Wayne had to leave.
I nearly said the other name.
Yeah, a lot of people nearly say the other name because it's very similar to the real person. But no, that was the other side.
And that was good. That was really clever. I love that.
So we'll talk about him in a minute because I realise we've only asked you the first part of your question. So we'll ask you your favourite scene throughout all of that.
Have I pitched yours, Ali, or is that all right?
What?
Well, have I pitched your favourite scene? Which was yours?
To be fair, yeah, I think that scene, when you started talking, because I was like, oh, what am I going to say? And as soon as you said it, I had like a flashback in my mind, and I could remember exactly where I was when I listened to it. And I think that is the sign of like a good scene, because I was picking somebody up from the hospital, and I was parked on the second floor, and I was walking down the steps, and I can remember like hearing, it was almost like I was there, but I'm sort of picturing the hospital because it's so cemented in my mind. So it was such a brilliant scene, and it really stood out for me. So I could be being lazy, Paul, and just letting you, what he said, but no, it was it was a definite moment in time, and I did like audibly get in,
Yeah, me too. I think I punched the air. I genuinely was like, yes.
And I don't know about you, Paul, but I mean, that's where I was physically in my real life when I was listening. But when I was picturing it happening, I was picturing that front, that office where the management were, and the actual place.
100%. Yeah.
We were as well when we wrote it.
Catching fire because there was always papers on the desk.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what the papers were about. I'm not even sure if they were just. I think they were just props, basically, for the park.
Look busy.
But, just to make it look like a busy office, because they never moved. They always seemed to be in the same position, and and so there would be lots of paper around for it all to go up in smoke. Yeah, crazy.
I think with Kelly, because she'd been so outspoken and bolshy, we could have just got rid of her, but I think she needed the big show of embarrassment. She needed to be put in a place. Bernie went in the quiet. He went quietly. He scuttled off in the night. He didn't he kind of got his comeuppance with Glenn, but he got scared to the point of wetting himself. But nobody saw that.
Well,
only Glenn and him knew about that.
The thing with Bernie, he just had a massive ego, and he was just behaving that way. It didn't matter about individuals. That's just how Bernie was. And, he was a bit of a dick. But Kelly, she was sly and manipulative, and she was doing everything behind people's backs and secretly. So to have everybody see that was just like, that light bulb moment for everybody, I think.
I think she thought she was untouchable as well because, with Bernie, I think he knew that he was on borrowed time. He was like, he knew he could get away with, but he knew he was on borrowed time. He knew that show was, rocky and everything. But with actual, her, she was borrowed. She knew she didn't think she'd ever get caught, and that's the genius of getting a baddie, isn't it? It's like, and doing it the right way. And again, I think if you'd had like Bernie had a big comeuppance, and then she'd have had a big comeuppance, I don't think we would have had the impact as we would have had with Kelly.
We had to balance Kelly quite well because we couldn't over egg it to the point where it becomes obvious that, because the management sees what she's doing, she's going to get fired. I mean, that's going to happen. So we had to be so subtle with her. But I think when Steve and I first spoke about all of it, I keep talking on your behalf, Steve, but when we first decided what we were going to do with Kelly, and we said, she's going to be making files on people and storing them on a work computer and not realize that she's incriminated herself.
Yeah.
Because she's so honest with what she's writing. I mean, what she's writing is fine. And, just to address the whole Wayne leaving thing, there was an argument, and Steve and I discussed this at length, to say, well, there is also a view that Wayne has kind of come on to her on one. He has demonstrated sexual harassment. He's done all of that stuff. He has to pay for that. And whether we like him or not, because we slowly evolved his character over time. I don't know if you noticed that he stopped eating. Every scene he was ever in, he was always eating. And then we transitioned him out of that. And we started to give him more of a conscience and more of a view. And that bit where he saves Judy's show and he does his thing, that was the turning point for Wayne, where he says, actually, I want to change. But a lot of damage had already been done, and we had to address that. So he had to fall on the sword, unfortunately. And that was the right thing to do. And Mark says that to him, to say, if you stay, you're going to have to go through all of this. You're going to have to, HR's going to get involved. Everything's going to get involved. And we didn't want to get bogged down in that.
No, we couldn't.
That's not great drama either. HR getting involved is not good drama, is it? That if that had been the comeuppance, we'd have all been a bit like, no.
We've had this discussion because in Mike's current life, because he's managed people, we did start to get scenes of HR coming in.
Whoa.
No,
you've done really bad here.
Not fun. Yeah. This is a formal warning. It's written, but it will only stay on you. And it's like, no. We need to have fun with this. We can take a bit of license. It doesn't have to be as realistic as that. Wayne found his mojo again, and I think it's similar to a lot of people that get put in the position that Wayne was put in. They were a performer, so all they knew, they got told, "We're going to promote you." So he gets promoted, thinks, "Great, I'm moving up," but actually, it was the performing that he loved. And the resentment he felt, even if he didn't identify that, was why he was rude to everybody, was why he was condescending, because he still wanted to be out there doing it. He still wants to be in front of the crowd. And I think that relates to the person it's based on as well.
I was just going to say, I think I might know who this is based on, but let's not go there.
Begins with a W.
Yeah, Wayne.
Yeah.
Wayne.
And our point was there that maybe he wasn't such a bad guy. He was just in a situation, and he behaved terribly, and he was disgusting at times, with the nuts and with the things he did with Kelly's underwear and all of that stuff. Was like completely gross, right?
That was the worst bit in the whole thing.
Which one, the nuts or the underwear?
The nuts. Oh, does that say something about me? Yeah, the nuts.
But that's it. We had to have that, that thing that nobody's all good and all bad. People have this. Some people have these tendencies and these behaviours. It doesn't necessarily make them a bad person. It doesn't mean they can't do good things.
No, I liked him.
But we needed him to,
in the second,
to move on and do that.
Yeah, I really liked him.
And I think we started to feel a bit for him, because he genuinely cared about Kelly. He did want a relationship with her. And he didn't always articulate well his affection, because it was always physical, his attempts at understanding that relationship. But actually, he had deep feelings for her. And so it broke his heart when he found out what he did. And then to do what he had to do as well, and know that it was his career too that was on the line. But... there's opportunities. He's not gone from the world. He still exists. You never know. We might see him again. Maybe he'll take himself abroad. You never know.
Or go onto a TV show.
Won't say any more than that. Yeah.
children's
Maybe do some
TV.
kids' TV.
Like Wacky Warehouse. Something like that. The Wacky Warehouse. I can see him on that.
So, Ali, did you give us your favourite character? Were you agreeing, or did you have a different character that was a favourite?
I like different people at different times. It's like saying what's my favourite song. It changes depending on my mood or what I'm doing, and it's a bit like that with the characters. I mean, Kelly, like you say, I mean, if you were playing a part in a panto or a show or a play or anything, you want to be the bad guy because it's interesting. You don't want to be Cinderella. How boring is that? You want to be the wicked queen. So, and it's a bit like that with Kelly. So, although I wouldn't want to be friends with her, I wouldn't want to work with her. I enjoyed listening to her. Judy, I wasn't keen on her at the beginning because she reminded me of someone, but then she developed into her own character, and I preferred her.
we had to expand her, and not base her solely on one person.
Yeah.
That was the secret there.
So I think as the season went, like talking like we weren't there. As the shows went on and everything, the characters did evolve. So Wayne did really grow on me, but I just love Karen, chocolate biscuits, biscuit lady.
Yes.
Yeah, I just
Karen's all over the list.
I have to be careful of the names.
Karen's the one she's got.
That's it.
Oh,
she's got a bit of
that.
tongue,
Yes,
that's all.
Brilliant.
I
She's
just
just a bit like that.
love
Yeah,
her,
She was lovely. Yeah,
We've
she
talked
was.
about it before, but I just loved that episode that you did where it just followed her and a day in the life of. I really enjoyed that, and I think if you did do specials, following a character around for a day would be something really interesting because there doesn't have to be loads of drama. It's just hearing what they get up to and what a day looks like for them. Just things like not being able to go out in your uniform, having to go up the back way and go into the the dressing room and go out the magic door and be inspected and all that stuff. That's the stuff that people who haven't worked there, they don't know that stuff exists. So, I think there's a bit of leg, bit of room for you to do something.
Wiggle room.
Yeah, wiggle room. Yeah, that's
just
right.
like maybe four or six specials.
Trying to get more out of us, Mike. I think the thing with Karen was we needed to show her worth because we'd seen her make mistakes, we'd seen her do things, but why was she still there then? What was it that kept Karen there? And it was the fact that
biscuits.
She held the blooming place together. Well, yeah, I mean, she gave everybody biscuits, but actually she was the glue of the place. She's what kept it flowing. And all the people.
Is she based on somebody that we may have known or worked with then? Yeah, because I think I know who that might be. Because there was somebody, and again, I won't mention any names because we wouldn't do that, but there was somebody that I remember that always seemed to be in the office with the fake papers everywhere, and they always seemed to be kind of keeping everything together. So it's probably that person.
The biscuits thing was just something we created. That's just the kookiness. That's not related to anyone. It was just a kookiness idea that we had where Karen just compares, but you can always tell a lot by the biscuit they eat, kind of thing. And actually, of every episode we've made, that one is my favourite.
Oh wow!
The following Karen around, because it gives a real sense of what the resort was like, of all the different things. And the fact that she just goes out to go to the toilet and then finds herself dealing with so many different things. And it takes her on a journey that takes a lot of the characters just day to day. There's nothing dramatic about it. It's not, hopefully it was quite funny, but it's the way she dealt with it all, with lost children and this, that, and the other. And it made what that did. It was a device for us to move the story along because we got to then showcase. So we couldn't have Donna working in the creche for no reason. We had to have a vehicle to get there so you could see Donna working in that environment. And when Stephen and I were talking about it, so, we got to do an episode on Carol. Let's just step away from it because it was right in the middle of the Bernie stuff. And it was all very full on, and the management are falling out, and everyone's falling out everywhere. It was that moment of levity, and it was such a breath of fresh air to write. When Steve and I was writing it, we were laughing our heads off and going, what if she does this next, and then what if she does that? But we tried to base it in logic, and then just remembering, okay, what would be that journey? And we had this resort mapped in our head to where she would get to. And the fact that you brought that up, Ali, is amazing because it's my favourite episode of every single one we've done.
Also, my favourite thing was, and it just made me so laugh so much, was that thing that somebody come up sleeping with the stars, which was just so wrong on so many levels.
Yeah.
And that was genius, but brilliant, because obviously you weren't sleeping with the stars, but that's what was happening. They were sort of staying in your accommodation, which is something that, let's face it, would never happen now and never could ever happen. But I just loved that somebody come up with the idea of sleeping with the stars. That made me laugh. And the little throwaway line about, oh, it's all you can rustle up as a couple of boy and girl wizards in some little film, which obviously became the biggest film, ever. And they could have had them there. And I was like, in my head, I was like, why did they get the boy wizards? And realizing I kind of went for that. That was brilliant. I liked that.
Oh, we had to toe the line so much with that one because when we were talking about Steve and I debated this to the nth degree about what celebrities we talk about, and we never really go into much detail about them on purpose. But we were like, okay, well, who can we get away with saying? And you can't now get away with saying hardly anybody. So we had to really be careful.
Not from that period. You can't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we debated this hard because you really wanted to go for Hollywood stars, and I was like, no, that won't be funny. That won't be funny. It's got to be that BC list celebrities that they can get. Well, yeah, but I'm being nice to them. Let's think about the people that were there. We wanted to make sure it was just naff enough that it wasn't, that some people, some punters would be excited about it, but the audience listening are going, it's a bit naff though, really, isn't it? A bit naff. Do I want to share an apartment with this celebrity? This day and age.
Wolf from Gladiator.
Yeah.
I
would. Okay, so I think there's a few other things we probably need to talk about then. I guess we've talked about favourite characters and things. So the whole Bernie thing, then Bernie as a character, did he evoke any memories for people of real life people from the world of entertainment, or was it
still real life people? I mean, I think we talked about it when I was on. Maybe it was when we weren't recording. I don't know, but we sort of said that there was a definite. We've all worked with somebody like Bernie, I think, who's had his day in the West End or whatever, and is now working on some show or something, and they think that they've got all these amazing ideas, and it was just. Yeah, you didn't hate him, but you kind of you didn't like him, but I suppose you didn't hate him as much as some of the other characters. But you kind of knew where it was going. But it was good. It was good that the way it went. I think you had a good story arc for him as well.
So I would really love to see that. There's so much of this that I would love to see. I'd love to see it on a TV show or a film or a special or something like that. Because Bernie's just like such a colourful character that you just love to see a real person playing that role, and the scarf over the shoulder and that kind of thing. But yeah, definitely have memories of people like that. And like you say, Paul, sort of having been involved in pantomimes and things of recent years, you sort of get quite a few people like that involved. It was probably me, actually. I was probably the Bernie. I used to be a dancer. Don't you know? Oh, I said it, sorry.
We're only allowed a certain number in the show. I don't know how many we're allowed. But
it's like if it's a 12A, yeah, you get one.
It was recent. I'm currently involved in a bit of a talent show myself at the moment, and we had a meeting the other night, and I had like a Bernie situation where I was like, oh, well, we usually have the sound desk behind. I've done quite a few of these shows, and this lady said, I have done all of that. I have been working in this, did the whole Bernie thing. Yeah. And I went, okay, pull it back now. She's a Bernie. I need to kind of just, try and work her a bit better. And by the end, I'd befriended her, but I knew how to play her because of maybe I sort of related her to Bernie a little bit.
So actually listening to this has helped you in your professional
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's been...
but it is identifying things of going, I've got to work with you, and if I stand up for what I believe in all the time, it's going to make it 10 times as hard. Actually, I need to win you over and coerce you into doing what I want to do, rather than just fighting you. And I think that's a lesson in life for everyone, really. That there are people like that you're going to have to manipulate in a different way.
There was a time when I had an audition, and I don't know if I told you the story. It was like where the guy, the Bernie, basically just said, tell him to stand on the X. I was like, stand on the X. Tell him to, and literally not talking to me, but talking to me through somebody else, and it was winding me up so much. And I was just like, wanted to say, why don't you tell me yourself? But you kind of hit, that was his power. That was his Bernie, and that was very much a
You've got to
Bernie.
let them have it, haven't you? Because it's all they have.
Yeah,
And really
I didn't
glad
get
that
the part, but we won't go there.
really glad you've resonated with that character, because we had to evolve the management. Because if you remember the first series, we never really go into much about the management. They're just there. It's mostly around the camp coats and what they're doing and their exploits. So we had to bring them to life, and we used Bernie as a way to disrupt. And hard to write, incredibly hard to write, in fact, because we brought Bernie and Glenn in at the same time. The owner with a million questions that even we had with each other, going, who is he? Where's he come from? Why has he got this money? Why has he bought it? What the hell's he doing there? Right through to, and why is he so dangerous? Right through to Bernie.
Definitely money laundering going on there with him, and I don't think he'd ever worked in entertainment in his life. He just
Camp Resort was just a front.
Yeah, definitely. The whole thing was a front. Maybe when we worked there, it was a front. Who knows? We don't know these things.
There was absolutely nothing of any kind of illegal value going on at this point. I'd just like to put that.
That is so weird to see you do that, because I've said this to you before. I don't see either of you when you do the voice. When I'm listening, it's not you two, it's the characters. And I can't tell who's who. So that was very strange for me just then.
And touching on that, there was a time, I think, where I couldn't tell who was doing it. And I was thinking, I'm sure, like, Steve, you normally do their voices. And then you've done a whole scene where you're literally talking to yourself.
Like 4 different people or something, and all yours. And you do the in and the out of the scene as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the idiocy of it is that in season 1, we didn't know we were writing it to perform like this, so we could get away with it. We were that foolish when we wrote season 2. We didn't think about whether one of us was going to be reading it. We were so focused on the story and the characters, we didn't think about the fact that there'll be days when nearly the whole episode is me or is Mike.
Do you know what?
Because we ended up voicing people in the relationship.
But that is part of its charm, and the fact that you're doing it in mostly one take, and stumbling over things occasionally. That's part of the joy of the whole thing. If it was really
listen, that Kelly scene, it was Kelly, Mark, and Judy all in the same scene, and I was bouncing between all three of them. I remember Steve at the very end of it, like you don't hear it in the edit, but at the very end, he just looked at me and went, "Well done, mate." And I was like, I need to lie down after that. And he went, "Well done," because that was all one take. It was just like literally bouncing between the two. And Steve's the same when he's playing characters that are playing off each other, and I'm just watching him like giggling away. And I think there was a scene you did that I got so involved watching you do it that I forgot we were in the scene. I was just listening to you and seeing the words.
Line.
Yeah, I seen that, and then you were looking at me like that, and I'm like, am I meant to say something?
Oh, it's me. Just
can we ask you then, who was your favourite character to voice and play?
Go on, Mike, you go first.
Mikey.
Oh, I'm torn between two. There's two I'm torn. I know who Steve's going to be, but I'm torn between two. Kelly was so much fun once I'd established her Neolithic Scottish accent, which is all regions of Scotland, all regions. And Judy was fun to play because I got to do that smokiness and just talk about, and I don't know, it was like it just felt cool. It just felt comfortable. Whereas Kelly, she's like really aggressive, and she can just get right into it. Like, so those two were the most fun to play. The most, I suppose, the one Adam wasn't. Adam was me and my own voice, so I didn't feel like it was much of a stretch. But I got a lot of dramatic scenes towards the end with Adam, where I had to really have a go and scream and shout, and I was like at the other end of the room shouting in, so it wasn't like distorting the microphone and stuff. And and I got to unleash a lot of my own personal turmoil through Adam. So I think that those three there.
Cool. What about you, Steve?
Oh, now I have 3 too, which is
3.
I think 3 of them. Yeah. So Margaret, first of all, I did enjoy doing Margaret because I like a bit of West Country, I like a bit of that, a bit of bumpkin, and we can go and say we'll do that and do this and do the other and whatever. And so I enjoyed that because I enjoyed the accent because it's fun and it's exciting, and the fact that you drive around and ram into people's shins with your mobility scooter. Glenn, because I liked the fact that nobody knew anything about him and he could be a little bit sinister and really bossy. So I enjoyed that again because it was quite a strong accent, so it was easy to get into the character. A more subtle character, when you flip in between Robin, say, and maybe Dan a little bit, it's hard because the accent's not as polarized. But I think it'd have to be Karen because everybody smiles when I've done Karen, so that was always fun because she was just a silly thing to do, and you could barely understand what she said. But
Give us a bit of Karen. Come on, give us a bit of Karen.
Okay, yeah. I get you that burger. They said they'd run out of onions, though. No onions. They've run out of onions. So yeah, that was it. We were at one point looking at making some T-shirts with the quote "We've run out of onions." Bad scripts at the bottom.
Love it.
That was Dan,
just to have
wasn't it? She was going to do that.
Yeah. She was getting Wayne a burger, wasn't she? Is that what was happening? I can't remember.
That was right, yeah.
Yeah. So it was. So I think they were all for different reasons fun because they were so. They were a little bit pantomime. They were a bit louder, a little bit more exciting.
The comic relief.
But we still got to do some dramatic scenes as well, so that was always nice. The hardest bit was, as you've witnessed today, us doing those voices, was when like Dan and Kelly had their sex scene in season 1.
Oh gosh,
and
yeah.
Me and Mike are having to look down the camera at each other and say all this stuff and keep a straight face so that we weren't laughing our way through the thing. And that's why there was so much laughter in there, because, you know, as I'm saying stuff about seductively running my hand across his hot, tender abs or whatever it was I said. And we were making eye contact and we were just giggling like little school kids. So that element was also fun too, but more so, like I say, with the accents to really get into the loud characters.
So I have a question as well, and it's mostly about the story as a whole. Given that you've listened to every single episode that we've released, and you'll have your views. How did you feel about the story itself and the way it concluded? Did you feel appeased or did you not? Did you feel that we missed some stuff? So I know, Paul, at the beginning you said this, we'd like to get into this and the gaps and stuff. I'd like where did we get it wrong? Where did we get it right? And how did you feel it all? Did it conclude in the right way?
Can I go first?
Go for it.
Thanks. Hand up. Yeah, for me, I feel like I need to listen to the whole thing in its entirety, back to back, in quick succession. Because, like, the first season, I listened to it close together because it had already been recorded. But then the second season, as and when it came out. So by the time it got to the end, I don't know, I felt like slightly shell-shocked by the whole thing. Like, I couldn't quite believe it was over and take it all in. And I've had to listen to it again to kind of really have it sink in that it's finished. So the second part felt disjointed to me, but I don't think it was the story. I think it was the fact that I was listening to it in stages. So I think, to give you an absolute honest answer, I would need to listen to it all again and then do another one. So, there's nothing that's jumping out at me now, which is why I'm going first, because I thought, Paul, I know you've probably got some.
No, I totally agree. It's like I don't think it's not fair to say you didn't get it right because there's so many different ways you could have gone. But I think the way you went was a way to go. You could have cut to Kelly at the end, stroking a cat and saying, I'll be back and all that. Yeah, which in my head I kind of thought that would have been cool, but then I thought, that'd be too pantomimey, and we've seen her, but we haven't. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of her. But but I always think I'm a big fan of soap operas, and as I've done bits of acting and stuff in the past, so and friends of mine write and stuff for soaps and stuff, and I'm always fascinated how they plan it out, and they plan it years. They have storylines and where something's going to come up, and they know about somebody coming in. It's so far in the future, which is why I asked you that question at the very start. So I don't think we were cheated as an audience at the end, but I just think we're cheated because we all loved it so much. We're all fans of the show. We're all listening right now, and I think we want to know what's going to happen to some of these characters because we've grown attached to them, and they're like with a good soap opera. And I won't mention one that I'm not a fan of at the moment and I'm not connected with this particular soap opera because I don't connect with the characters anymore. So I don't watch that one anymore, but I watch the other ones. So and I feel with this we all, and I'm sure Ali agrees, that we all connected with these characters, and it came to an end and the minibus went off, and just like, what's going to happen now? But I mean, that is good telly, that is good drama, that is good.
You need to leave us wanting more. That is.
Yeah, exactly. If you'd have tied up every end, then I think would have gone okay. And that the golden rule is, and I'm not an expert in this, but the golden rule is to never tie up every end. Always leave people. What's going to happen there.
That was a very distinct point as well that we made, and probably for a slightly different reason. I think because of the scenario that we were in. It was always someone's last season. It was always someone's first season. So some of those characters, they'd only just begun their arc. So we didn't want to tie it all up in a bow because life still went on in that place. It was still going to go on. So those characters, the Allies and the Haleys and that, they're all still going to be going on with their lives, even though some of them have left and moved on, as it was when we were there. People were there one season, they weren't the next. We didn't want anybody to have too dramatic a leaving. Even Adam's exit, although slightly dramatic because he does the walk and he says bye to people, that was kind of hammed up to a certain extent so that we could tell he was leaving, but we didn't want to have a big "I'm going, guys, and I'm not going to come back." He just left, and
no one would care. No one would care if Adam leaves, though.
No, his friend, but to some of his friends he would, and I think he wants to. There's a little nod to Mark as he leaves, so we know he's left on decent terms. But it needed to be kind of low key, so that only the audience appreciated it. It shouldn't be a big dramatic exit, although it kind of is.
I feel though, like for me personally, if I go and see a film at the cinema, the ones that I enjoy the most are the ones that I walk away thinking, what's happened next, what's going, like I keep talking about it because it hasn't tied everything up. It's left some questions unanswered. And with like good TV shows and stuff, I mean, sometimes they finish abruptly because they've not carried on, but fanfic is a huge thing, isn't it? Because people want to imagine where these characters go, and this has that potential that you have got the characters carrying on with their lives. And like you said in the finale, you could just carry on and on forever, and you're trying to one up yourself and make things more and more dramatic, but the reality of it is that it's just another load of new faces coming in and another load of new faces, and lots of the same thing happening but with different people. So I think you did the right thing, and as much as it makes me sad to say it, it was the right thing. I think you could have maybe got another season out of it, but
I think you're absolutely spot on with what you've said though, Ali, and Steve and I deliberated over this a lot to say, well, what would season 3 look like? And we decided early on, right at the start of season 2 when we started writing it, this will be it. So let's throw everything at this, because we could have turned season 2 into 2 seasons because there's 2 very different stories running. But we had to figure out a way to run them in parallel and then to bring them together. The whole season 2 could have been just Bernie and Bernie's exploit. The whole season 3 could be with Kelly and the rest of the cast and Wayne and what's going on there. But we decided to bridge it in there. But when we took a step back and when we first wrote those Christmas episodes and we brought Bernice in for Son Lolly, that was the setup for the end of season 3, for the end of season 2. So we'd already decided at that point that Bernice is going to come in. She's going to bring these holiday reps in. She's going to reappear, and she's going to poach some of the staff. And we decided at the very beginning it's going to be Adam and Dan. We then had to figure out how we made that happen, and that again was part of the decision making in terms of the character arcs and what we're going to do. And because we threw so much into Dan during the Christmas specials, and he's going, with the sex shop and the sex doll and all that kind of stuff with, that people are forgetting, like that whole experience that he went through. we had to have them just meandering along, and because we couldn't throw more into it. And believe you me, Steve and I had a whole different storyline with Damo, Dan's
Do you remember
childhood
Damo?
friend. Yeah, coming in, and there was a whole thing, and we said we'll hold that for a spin-off. We'll save all of that, but we literally mapped out Damo coming in, and originally Damo was going to be the person responsible for breaking up Donna and Dan. But as we experienced with Bernie and stuff, we changed our mind part the way through and said it's just too much. It's too much to then throw that in because we've got Kelly going on, then we've got Adam going on. There's too many threads to start winding in. So we just put it on the back burner. So
Yeah, because you don't really have one protagonist, do you, that you're following throughout the entire thing, which, makes, like you say, you've got so many threads all over the place. So that makes it difficult.
it was a headache, and I don't mind saying that, Steve. With you and I would sit there like with our heads on our hands, going, "We've still got hundreds of pages to write." And believe the script itself. If you see the script, they are hundreds of pages long. They are, we've got about 700 or 800 pages of script from season 1 and 2.
That actually brings me to a question that I've got for you boys, because obviously this podcast has been quite labour intensive for you, hasn't it? Because you've had all the writing to do constantly. Have you got any plans to carry on doing a podcast that maybe doesn't involve writing? Because I know people have enjoyed listening to you. I've enjoyed listening to you. You could read the phone book out between you, and I'd listen to it because it's just fun listening to you two banter. But, where do you go from here? What's happening next?
Ooh, shall I go, Mike? Shall I talk? So we can't really talk about it. Mike is going overseas for a little while. So it is going to be more difficult to do stuff. So we still want to do some stuff, but exclusive then. Here we go. We are going to be revisiting season 1, not podcast based. We are going to re-edit it and we're going to put it out there either as a book, a story. What we'd really like to do is record it as an actual audio play and get people in to voice the different characters as well, so we can and our ultimate aim is to try and sell it, try and distribute it as a TV show, see if people would be interested in actually making The Last Resort or whatever it would be called, because there might be something already called that out there. I think season 1 we've got to go back and we need to look at some of the stuff we wrote and just tidy it up. But we sent it out once 20 years ago, got some good feedback, but never acted on that feedback. So we feel like maybe now's the time to go back, look at that, and maybe try and do something different with it. If recording it as an audio play and distributing it on somewhere like Audible or other streaming platforms are available, then it might be a way to showcase that and maybe see about doing something with it. Maybe we try crowdfunding. Who knows? There's so many opportunities out there, and to you guys out there who've both performed before, we're always looking for people to do the voices. So if you're keen, then let us know too, because we want people to be involved. We don't want it to just be me and Mike. We want the story to do the telling, not us. So that's kind of our aim for this year. I think we'd like to do some more episodes, be that I don't know if either of you listened to any of the movie ones we did. So we did some movie episodes where we got the characters' favourite films and stuff, and we watched them and talked about those. So we might do something along those lines, but we don't want to bore people with us constantly chattering away. So I guess we leave it up to the audience to what we do next. On that.
So I wanted to ask you guys. So the people that listen to this, obviously, me and Ali are big fans because of you guys, and of course our backgrounds and the interest in holiday parks and stuff. Are the listeners, most of the listeners, in the same position as us? Have they worked in these parks, or are they just people that are really interested in what you're doing, or what's been your feedback there?
That's a great question.
Do you want me to go again, Mike, or do you want to?
Go for it.
So it's an interesting one because we thought they would be. We thought it would be very niche and it would be for people who've worked in the industry. But we've got viewers or listeners, should I say, from all over the world. 26% of our listenership comes from the United States of America. So that's like a quarter of all of our listeners are from overseas there.
That's amazing.
We've got 2% in Germany, Australia, Portugal, South Africa, Poland, New Zealand. I've got a list here of all the different countries. Bangladesh, Lebanon, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Japan, Cayman Islands. Wonder who that might be. Lots of different things that lots of different places. So, and the feedback we get from other people, I mean, from the guys that like yourselves that have worked in that environment, we get that, oh my God, it's so nostalgic. But from people who've never worked in the industry, they come to us and go, oh my God, I missed out. Oh my God, I've never lived. Oh, I wish I'd lived your life. I wish I'd had the experiences that you guys have had. And I think we take that for granted because we just did it. And we did it when we were young, but they get to experience an hour of it a week or something. And it feels like they go, what a life, you know, how exciting to do all these things. And that tends to be the overriding feedback we get is it feels like you've lived 1,000 lifetimes, you know, of excitement. I mean, we don't talk about the mundane stuff and the sitting alone in your chalet or your caravan board because everyone else is working on your day off and things like that. But that's
food,
not exciting.
The awful food.
Exactly.
And the fish finger beds.
Yeah, fish finger beds, tiny little things. But yeah, to answer, I hope that answers your question, Paul, because it
does.
It was
Brilliant.
bizarre that we were just shocked that anybody listened in the first place.
Yeah.
We thought it was just for us, but then when
three people listening would have been a success, considering that
like,
we're
yeah, and it ended up being over 3,000, which you know is crazy when you think it's such a niche thing that we haven't really publicized. It's all been made for free and on a shoestring budget. It's lovely to know that many people have. Yeah, it was I spent it. It was my money to spend. But it wasn't.
Yes,
a lot.
but you got my talent, darling. So.
Oh, there we go.
All right,
yeah. And it's been crazy because, like you say, we've had messages from all over the world and people saying, you know, this is great. We thought it was very British humour. We thought it's not going to appeal to people outside of the UK, but you know, we were shocked as anybody when this listenership sort of sprung up. There we go.
No, it's brilliant to hear. No, it's really good to. I mean, you guys told me about it and invited me on, and then I got into it, and yeah, and Ali was saying this before we started recording. It's literally like you are transported back there. And it's amazing. And like, if people are listening and they didn't live it, I hopefully with your excellent writing and great voices and brilliant script and just the whole thing.
You're interfering with my final question here, Paul.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's a very important question because it's the question.
Big question.
It's the big question because it's the question we started with when we episode one. We asked a question. And now, hundreds of hours later, and thousands of hours worth of work has led us to the question again. And Steve, you asked it. I can't remember who asked the question originally, but I think you should ask the question.
Okay, so the last resort. Bad script?
No.
No way. Great script.
So now you can actually just put Paul Metcalfe, Alison Riley. No, it's not a bad script. The question's finally been answered.
A great title, because I think if you started saying, if you're saying this is the best script in the world, it's almost like people are going to be like, oh, is it? But you're basically saying you're asking that question every episode, aren't you? You're
very brave of you, isn't it, to put it out there and literally be, you're literally asking whether people think what you've done is crap or not. Every episode.
And we've appreciated that. As we've spoke about this in length before, that Mike was really reluctant to do that first record, to put it out there because you're literally saying, "Come at me, haters," because that's what the internet could be like, and putting stuff out there. And we appreciate not everybody's going to like it. That's the way of any kind of work that anybody does. You could have the highest rated movie of all time. Was it The Shawshank Redemption? There's still people out there who go, "No, I thought it was crap." That's fine because everybody
it bombed
has
at the theatres
opinions
as well. To be honest with you, it did. Yeah,
but critically, now is often obviously seen as one of the best pieces of cinema of all time, supposedly. But then
Well,
it's an
actually,
opinions thing, isn't it?
let's talk about this, Steve, that not many people know about, actually, that you and I experienced. So when we first agreed that concept of bad scripts, because we didn't know if it was any good and we hadn't read it, so it was almost like we're gonna go with this, and it'll be quirky, and it could be bad, but it could be good, but it's a question mark, and let's just keep it open. But we got into a little podcast argument with a different podcaster that also was using the same name.
Oh,
And Steve had to bring the big guns
Not
out.
the same name. It was a very similar name, but where we'd used one word, they used the word screenplays. And they said, we noticed your concept is very similar to ours, and blah, 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 blah. I went, oh, that's great. It's good to know that there's, plenty of people doing, it's good to know there's another group out there doing a similar activity. It's great that we're all going to coexist in this world. And
well done. Took the higher ground.
Well, I think you had to, because, I mean, for one, we'd already got the art and we had the metadata to prove that the name of the show and everything had been done way before they
year before, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we already knew we hadn't copied them.
The world's big enough,
was the point.
isn't it? The world's big enough for all this. And, potentially, if we've enjoyed your show, we might look for things that are of a similar ilk and listen to that. So, yeah, it's very silly.
And that's...
I'm not just saying this. I genuinely wasn't a big podcast person, and you guys, I listen to yours, and I do listen to other podcasts now. I'm sorry to say that. I do listen to other ones, but I hadn't before. It isn't something I really looked into, and I think you'll agree that at a time when maybe TV isn't great, there isn't, there's some great stuff out there. Of course there is, but we're in a time where people are using, streaming services more and more, and it's gonna get like that, where people could choose what they want to watch, and the fact that you're getting those numbers choosing to listen to your podcast is absolutely brilliant, because I mean, how many podcasts are out there? I mean, it's just madness, and they choose to dip into yours, and they keep coming back to listen to it because it's brilliant, guys. It's really brilliant.
It's so good. And I think the podcast, like you, Paul, I wasn't really into podcasts, and I have tried to listen to some other ones, and I sometimes I just can't be doing with them. They annoy me, the stuff they talk about, and it's like, but yours, I had it on at work. I'd be like having to photograph wedding dresses and do stuff, and then you can hear if I've got the sound on that your podcast is in the background, because I'm able to multitask. I couldn't do that with a TV show on, but it's I've missed you, and I've missed it, and I'm really happy to see your faces, and like I say, I think I will listen to the whole thing again from beginning to end without breaks. And
I will warn you, though, the accents will have changed. So I know for a fact that Wayne's accent is completely different.
Disclaimer noted.
And especially the first few episodes of season 1, we actually didn't set on specific characters. So we played some of the same character sometimes.
Interesting.
Right.
So
That's right. Yeah.
Mike did some of the narration and stuff. And so we did kind of mix it up a bit at first. As you do with a lot of podcasts, you see that they find their feet. We think it was about episode 5 before we really hit the ground and felt comfortable in our skin doing it. And then that led on, and then by season 2, we kind of felt like we had our structure, and I think that helps any podcast, is that structure. You knew you'd have that rubbish intro where we do our it's season 2, blah blah blah. Then I'd introduce Mike. We'd have a laugh about how I introduce him. We'd talk about what happened before, what's happened in the week, and then we go into the scenes. And that's familiar for everybody. So there's a structure behind it.
It is. It's comforting.
I know where I am.
Safe.
Yeah, I know where I am. Because that structure, as weird as it is, like you say, gives you a sense of familiarity. So you feel comfortable, relaxed, and you listen. And that was intentional, that we tried to create that consistency across the episode, so it doesn't feel all over the place.
And like we said at the beginning, it is genuinely from our hearts an honour that you've been our friends and been supported, but also listened and got involved and provided feedback across the way as well. And that feedback has been so important, because it helps shape us with where we were going with the characters. And I can't say it enough. Ali, you said something to us at the end of season 1, and I have to say it again. You said my criticism of season 1 was
Hang on,
the female
after all the nice stuff that I said, it wasn't just...
after all the night. No, but it was great feedback.
Yeah, it's
You
good.
said your female characters are not real enough or fleshed out enough. And me and Steve took that away, and we spoke about it. We said, you know what? I think Ali's right. You know, I think we underserve our female characters. So we took that feedback forward and went, we have to broaden that out and build on that more and get more into that kind of psyche and say, well, how do we fix that then so it's not so male orientated? And that for me was probably the best feedback we ever got, because
thank you, and I'm glad
it broadened our mindset.
I'm glad that you acted on it, because that relationship that the two girls had, it was just so sweet, and it just was so natural and easy, and there was nothing sleazy about it, and it was just really nice to listen to, and it's like it wasn't a massive drama, it was just a natural progression of their friendship, and it was really nice.
And it's strange, it's because, like I say, from both of you, talking to you when we did our interviews with you helped us to build out characters, because we understood a little bit about how you guys lived and how you felt about it, and it helped us. So to both of you, it's incredible. You really helped us to flesh out those characters. We didn't, like you said about that relationship there, we were really conscious. We'd had the sort of naughty stuff and the cheeky stuff, and what we didn't want to do is go down a stereotype of let's have a gay relationship, but it has to be full of drama and sex and things. We just wanted a romantic.
Each other, it's always
exactly. Yeah, we wanted to just show
threesomes, all that kind of thing. It was just like,
we wanted to show that a gay relationship is just a relationship, and it can be as wholesome as anything. Because it's often not portrayed that way. There's often huge amounts of drama on TV or in film and what have you. We wanted it to be wholesome and to be just two people that felt for each other, and it was really sweet. And that's hard because we didn't have a huge amount of experience, because we're two middle-aged straight white males, so we don't have a lot of the industry and being friends with people so diverse has been a wonderful experience for us, because I came from a little town where I didn't experience a lot of that. It's been wonderful to have the feedback of people who are from different backgrounds and different orientations and different colours, creeds and races, because we felt it enriched the story, and we tried to get across as wholesomely and as authentically as possible how people felt.
So when we created those, I'm just going to jump in. So when we created those characters, we created them in a very specific way. So Paula knew herself, very sarcastic, very brummy, and spoke her mind and was very direct. And we wanted to show that in any interaction she ever had. She was always going to be direct. She has a very direct conversation with Adam, and she's the first person to call out his behaviour. And then we wanted Hayley to be chipper and happy and just so happy to be there, because that was her dream. She's living her dream. And right from the very first episode of season 2, when the greeting guests coming in and she's with Paula and she's with the other with Ali, she's just so happy, and they're kind of taking the mick out of her a little bit. But we always knew that these two characters would come together, and Steve and I didn't quite know how to write it until we wrote it. And we just said, and you've said the words already, Ali. We just said it has to be wholesome, it has to be natural, and it has to be about Paula knowing what she wants, but Hayley not quite knowing who she is yet, but then finding that way forward and finding even greater happiness. So if it translated in that way, amazing, because that's exactly what we were trying to do. But we didn't want to sully it with anything or too much conversation or too much narrative. We just wanted to imply and they're just having a nice chat, and that kind of happened. And then we didn't really want to over-egg it, because we didn't want to make it a massive thing. They disappear back into the background with a few lines around, they're there, they're happy. And who knows where their relationship's going to go, because we don't. But they're enjoying this moment in time, this partnership together.
Yeah, it was good. So thank you for taking that on board and and implementing it. Very good.
Cool. Well, I don't know, Mike. I think we've probably taken up enough of our guest time for today. What I'll do is just give you a couple of minutes to explain what you guys are up to at the moment, and then just to shout out any information you might have around social media or anything you want to call out for your businesses or for your careers, so that the audience who've listened to you and watched you now can follow you even further. So, Paul, do you want to go first? Tell us a little bit about what you're up to in the future and
Yeah, currently working on a local talent show here in Berkshire, where I'm currently living, which is lovely, and it's a really chance for all the community to kind of. It's called Wokingham's Got Talent, and it's I've got a performing dog, I've got children's choirs. So again, it's exactly what I used to do with all you guys back in the old park days. So it's nice. It's like things have come full circle with that. That's lovely. And then over the summer, I've just signed a deal with a big sweetie company. So I'm going to be in Blue Water Shopping Centre doing a big sweetie company event, which I'm looking forward to. So there'll be lots of sweets given out to lots of hyperactive children. Again, being back where we started. So yeah, I'm just carried on doing all the lovely things I'm doing. I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky at the moment. And paulmetcalfe.tv is my website with lots of info on there. And my social media, is Puzzle Paul. It's been a link for me because I did the quiz shows and stuff on TV, and I've just kind of had this bit of a nickname, and I'm happy to ride with it. So anything you look up Puzzle Paul, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all those things there. So yeah, but I'm really chuffed that you guys invited me along. I've had a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and make sure everyone out there check out Puzzle Paul. And so, Ali,
where do we get free sweets from Puzzle Paul?
I'll sort you out. I'll sort you out.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. Don't forget that. Yeah. Ali, tell us a little bit about what you've got going on at the moment and how people can follow you.
Oh, yeah. So life's gone a bit crazy at the moment. A year and a half ago, I retired from dance teaching and choreography, which I'd done, since those days. And I have a bridal boutique, a pre-loved bridal boutique in Caister in Lincolnshire. Actually, one of our friends from those days, Kate, she set up the first one 10 years ago. And there's I think there's 23 around the country now. So Bridal Loved, Bridal Love Caister, if you're looking for me, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, you name it, I'm on it. And also, I did retire from teaching dancing, but somehow I've been roped into choreographing a school production of Evita. And I'm also doing workshops, music and movement with special needs learners. And I'm probably going to be starting doing wedding first dances again because there's a gap in the market there. And one of my brides has bullied me into choreographing her wedding first dance. So even a bit like you, Paul, it's come full circle, and I'm right back where I started. I think just dance and choreography calls to me, and whether I want to do it or not, it's happening.
Fantastic. And so it's Bridal Will of Caister on TikTok, Instagram, all those things. Then people can get
everything. And it's not just. I mean, obviously, if people are looking for wedding dresses, great. But any engagement, if you watch my videos, give me a like, give me a follow, because it just it helps engagement if you do. So, and I'm always
an amazing award-winning choreographing your first step ball change, dance, slide, turn around. Amazing. So if people would like to do that, do they go through the same avenue, or do they contact you separately to get some choreography?
Just through Bridal Loved's fine, because I do have social media all over the place, but it gets a bit unmanageable, doesn't it? So through Bridal Love Caister is probably the best avenue.
And do we get to see tutorial videos as well?
Do you know what? I might do. We'll see how it goes. I'm currently workshopping names and, how I'm going to get found. Oh, and I'm in a band. I'm in 2 bands. Yeah.
2 bands?
I put on Facebook that I wanted to be in a band to get into festivals for free. And, so I'm in a kind of punk band called Kathy and the Mishaps. I'm a backing vocalist. And we're just currently creating a folk band We haven't got a name yet, but we're going to be doing festivals throughout the summer. And
That is two extremes, punk and folk.
I was going to say, well, you could have folk funk, but no. I mean, here's one. You could be called. You could do covers, folk covers of Take That songs, and you could be called Folk That. That would
if
work.
that
I suppose
hasn't happened already, it should. But yeah, life's gone a bit mad. Ever since the time that none of us could go outside, I feel like this year is the first year where, everything's really ramping up and there's loads of opportunities and things happening. So yeah, it's all good. Very tired, but it's all good.
And look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to both of you. It's always wonderful to reminisce with you guys and talk about the old days, and also, about what you guys are doing, because I find it fascinating. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your honesty.
Thank
and
you for having
to everybody
us.
out there.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us, everybody listening and watching. And we'll see you again, hopefully soon, on the Bad Scripts podcast. But for now, from us all, goodbye.
Bye.
Bad Scripts was written and performed by Mike Garlia and Steve Jones, a Beach Tide production.